Hey there, welcome back to my channel, or hello if you're new. My name is Raven, and today we're going to be hanging out in my craft room with the bunnies and starting a new sewing project. Starting off, I've been trying really hard to maintain a good morning routine. I found out in the last couple of weeks that I have seasonal affective disorder in the summer, and while I do take medication, I benefit a lot from having a lot of structure and routine. I've been trying to add in some Pilates as a gentle morning movement. We go weightlifting about 4 days a week, but I still really like body weight workouts and want to make sure that I'm setting aside time to focus on my core. It helps with my back pain when I'm able to stay consistent with it. Right now I'm only doing some short, gentle videos just to get used to the feeling of waking up and moving. I become even less of a morning person in the summer, so baby steps all the way. My favorite breakfast lately has been waffles with peanut butter and apple slices. I think this has been one of my summer go-tos for a couple of years now because it's low effort and filling and tastes pretty good. This was the week after Zach had been home on vacation, so I wanted to make sure I was thorough and detailed with my weekly review and planning. My head was really discombobulated from being off my routine for a whole week and from summer setting in, and I also just wanted to make sure I really sat and looked back at the vacation and enjoyed it instead of just immediately letting it disappear from my mind and skipping forward to whatever was next on my calendar. ADHD can really mess with your sense of time and focus on now and not now. My brain was still feeling kind of overloaded, so I wanted to take a few minutes and just doodle. I kept seeing this Zentangle pattern pop up on my Reels feed, and it made me want to try it out. I tried it on paper already, but I wanted to try it with my iPad to see how having a stabilizer and consistent opacity would change the overall look. I'm kind of shocked to say this, but I actually like the paper version a bit better. Normally, I'm all about doing digital art, and I don't like drawing on paper very much. Since my craft room is kind of overcrowded with all of my hobbies, I'm trying to slowly go through the storage spaces in the room to get them in a more functional state. I don't have enough storage overall, but I'm hoping that I can make the best of what I have now until we can afford to add shelves in the closet and really maximize the space. So today I worked on the cube shelf unit under the TV. I feel like it's not the most obvious before and after because everything is in the black cubes, but I did get some of the cubes consolidated for things like embroidery, painting, and amigurumi supplies instead of having them all mixed up and confusing, and I have a couple of open cubes available now for other purposes. Once the room was a little less chaotic, it was time to move on to my next sewing project. I really need an apron for baking. I am really messy even when I'm trying not to be. Since I always wear black every time I bake, you can see my clothes are coated in flour and powdered sugar. I've had these sewing patterns in my stash since before I even started sewing. They were gifted to me when I bought my sewing machine, and so today was my first time even trying to use a commercially produced pattern. I knew I wanted to use this pink fabric with skulls on it. I love the fabric, but and it's way too bright of a color palette for something that I would wear as a skirt or a garment for a full day instead of just something to bake with. And the pattern has a pretty clear direction on it, so it wouldn't be easy to piece a larger garment with my current skill set. The first thing I realized when I opened the pattern up was that I couldn't understand the instructions. This wasn't a complete surprise because I'm not the best with written instructions in the first place, so I already figured I would be rewriting them in my notebook. I feel like the instructions could have been more clear in a few specific ways, like telling you how many of each piece you should cut, but I don't know if that's something typical of commercial patterns or if I'm just coming at it from a completely different angle since I'm not much of a sewer. The second thing I realized is that I hate tissue paper. I mean, I know I don't like tissue paper in general, which is why I avoid it and forget that it exists until I have to cut it out a pattern that's been printed on my minor nemesis. Parts of this pattern had been used before I received them, so some of the pieces were already cut out, which I was thankful for, but some of them weren't, so I still had to deal with the tissue paper flipping up in the wind. Ideally, I wouldn't have two fans running in my craft room while I was doing this, but this was filmed during a heat wave and it was either have every fan possible going or be unable to do any sewing and just melt in a puddle. Once the patterns were cut out, I didn't mind cutting out the fabric pieces. I actually started to have fun with it. I would still love to have more surface area to cut on, but this is a huge improvement to what I had before when I was just working with one desk and the floor. I did still have to move to the floor for the larger pieces, but that was a lot more manageable than doing the whole thing on the ground. I didn't do the best job of maximizing the amount of fabric I had, but I was mostly just focusing on getting it all cut out and making sure I had the right amount of pieces and just keeping them organized. This is also around the time that I realized that because of the direction of the fabric, I was limited to making the main part of the apron the width of the fabric itself, which was too narrow for the pattern, so I ended up tweaking some placements and measurements to try and make it all work. This pattern also included gathering, which I haven't really done outside of the back of embroidery projects. I didn't film it, but I tried to use the machine to gather and broke the thread like 3 times and decided to just do it by hand. It didn't come out great, but I'm fine with that. I'll probably have more chances to try it in the future since I do like the look of gathered skirts a lot. Once everything was cut, it was time to press. I've actually started to enjoy this part of the process more than the actual sewing part. It's just so satisfying to watch everything get smooth and crisp and into the shape that is going to be the final result. The only con about this part is the fact that I use Frixion pens to mark my fabric, so all of the notes that I had added to the pieces vanished, and my big brain tried to say that it would remember, and I didn't need to rewrite them down anywhere. The sewing part of this took way less time than any other step. Other than the gathering part, the failed attempts at gathering added in a good chunk to the overall time score. Everything else was pretty easy to do. I didn't finish the entire project, but I definitely got the bulk of it done. The pockets were attached, the skirt was pretty much done, and so was the bib part. The main thing I had left to do was the waist ties and adding Velcro to the neck area. The instructions wanted me to connect the two pieces and have them completely closed, but I didn't like the idea of having to pull it over my head, and I didn't want to mess with buttonholes on this project. We'll be finishing this apron in a different vlog, so I'll share my final thoughts there. Until then, we've got some cozy vibes to help unwind after all of the shoulder hunching I was doing at my sewing machine and the cutting table. Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out is probably in my top 10 romance animes. It was so cute and funny. Random gaming update, I have actually gotten further in Zelda than I've ever been, which is mildly stressful, so I've been procrastinating on boss fights. Thank you so much for watching. Leave me a red emoji in the comments to let me know you stayed until the end, and hit subscribe if you want to see more content in the future. I hope you're having a wonderful day or that tomorrow is better.